परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः अतः कविर्नाम सुयावदर्थः स्याद् प्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धे अन्यथार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः अतः कविर्नाम सुयावदर्थः स्याद् प्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धे अन्यथार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः अतः कविर्नाम सुयावदर्थः स्याद् प्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धे अन्यथार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः कविर्नाम सुयावदर्थः व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धे अन्यथार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः अतः कविर्नाम सुयावदर्थः स्याद् प्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धे अन्यथार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः. वैष्णवीस्. अतः कविर्नाम सुयावदर्थः स्याद् प्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धे अन्यथार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्ष्यमाणः. अतः for this reason Kavihi, the enlightened person, Namasu, in names only, Yavat, minimum, Arthaha, necessity, Syat, must be, Apramattaha, without being mad after them, Vyavasaya buddhi, intelligently fixed, Siddhe, for success, Anyatha, otherwise, Arthe, in the interest of, Na, should never, Yateta, endeavor for, Tatra, there, Parishramam, laboring hard, Tatra, there, Samikshamanaha, one who sees practically. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: for this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to pursue practically that all such endeavors are hard labor for nothing. Purport: The Bhagavad Dharma or the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam is perfectly distinct from the way of fruitive actions, which are considered by the devotees to be merely a waste of time. The whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence, is moving on as Jagat, simply for planning business to make one's position very comfortable or secure, although everyone sees that this existence is neither comfortable nor secure, and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. Those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria, are certainly madmen. The whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, water, and fire. The building, furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material elements, with their concomitant reactions of the three modes. Since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly, he is not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babble of sea waves. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotees realize how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruity workers aspire after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, women, and worldly adoration. But those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. For them it is all a waste of time. Since every second of human life is important, an enlightened person should be very careful to utilize time very cautiously. 1 second of human life wasted in the vain research of planning for happiness in the material world can never be replaced, even if one spends millions of coins of gold. Therefore, the transcendentalist desiring freedom from the clutches of Maya or the illusory activities of life is warned herewith not to be captivated by the external features of fruitive actors. Human life is never meant for sense gratification, but for self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam instructs us solely on this subject from the very beginning to the end. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. The civilization which aims at this utmost perfection never indulges in creating unwanted things, and such a perfect civilization prepares men only to accept the bare necessities of life or to follow the principle of the best use of a bad bargain. Our material bodies and our lives in that connection are bad bargains because the living entity is actually spirit, and spiritual advancement of the living entity is absolutely necessary. Human life is intended for the realization of this important factor, and one should act accordingly, accepting only the bare necessities of life and depending more on God's gift, without diversion of human energy for any other purpose, such as being mad for material enjoyment. The materialistic advancement of civilization is called the civilization of demons, which ultimately ends in wars and scarcity. The transcendentalist is specifically warned herewith to be fixed in mind, so that even if there is difficulty in plain living and high thinking, he will not budge even an inch from his stark determination. For a transcendentalist, it is a suicidal policy to be intimately in touch with the sense gratifiers of the world, because such a policy will frustrate the ultimate gain of life. Shukdev Goswami met Parikshit Maharaj when the latter felt the necessity for such a meeting. It is the duty of a transcendentalist to help persons who desire real salvation and to support the cause of salvation. One might note that Shukdev Goswami never met Maharaj Parikshit while he was ruling as a great king. For a transcendentalist, the mode of activities is explained in the next shloka. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today morning we are discussing from one of the most insightful verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of what all it can guide us in our life. In fact, when I read this verse for the first time about 23-24 years ago, so I found this one of the most instructive verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I have tried to condense the essence of this verse in 4 lines. So each line corresponds to, this is a PowerPoint I have over here. So this is what is really nice in this world. So the meaning of this verse I have condensed in this acronym NICE. So NICE. So what I'll do is I'll take each line, we'll recite that line, then I'll talk about a significant explanation of that line, and then we'll move forward. So the first line, what does it say? Let's recite this. Ataha kavir naam suyavadarthaha. Suyavadarthaha. So, naam suyavadarthaha. That the wise see that the world is simply a jugglery of names. So that's the first point I'll discuss. The newness in the world is mostly due to word jugglery. We human beings are naturally looking for something which is attractive. And one very common feature of attractiveness, of what makes something attractive, is newness. So we keep looking for new things. On our phones, we want to look for some new notification, new messages. Now when we come to a place, we see, okay, what's new over here? In fact, we meet people also, we ask, what's new? Isn't it? The word news has the word new inside it implicitly. News is what is new that is happening. But it is said that what is news? News is mostly old things happening to new people. It means essentially in the world, there's nothing really new that happens. There is deceit, there is destruction, there is death, there are scandals, there is this, there is that. But it's just new people it happens to. If you consider a sports match, you can say it's new action, but essentially the same shots are being played. It's just different players playing it in different contexts. So there is essentially nothing new in the material world. So whatever appears new, it's due to simply a jugglery of names. Ataha kavir nama suyavadarthaha. Nama suyavadarthaha. So there are new names associated with things, and that's how they become attractive. Now, if we consider things from the perspective of appearance and things from the perspective of substance. There's appearance, how they look, and substance is what they essentially are. So, in terms of newness, in the world, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, there is nothing new. Everything is made of the same fundamental elements. Bhumirapo, nalo vayu, kham mano buddhirevacha. Earth, everything is just a combination of earth, water, fire, air and ether. That's all it is. And it's just given a new name and it appears attractive. Abrahmastamba paryantam sarvamayam jagat satyam satyam punah satyam harer nameva kevalam. So in the Harer Namashtakam it said that right from something which may appear as powerful as Brahma, who is the creator, the greatest among all the gods administering the world. Brahma stamba paryantam. Stamba means it's like a stump of a grass. Not even a grass, after the grass is cut off, just a small stump remains. So stamba paryantam. Sarva mayamayam jagat. It's all simply filled with Maya. Now Maya what does the word Maya mean? Does anyone know? Illusion. Grammatically or etymologically? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Ma means not. Ya means this. It is not as it appears to be. So, the things in this world are not false. Things are real. But what is false is their promise of pleasure. Now we may say, how is it different? Actually, there is pleasure in this world. We'll come to that a little bit later. But essentially, the difference is in the forms. That it's all a jugglery of names. And so it's just the elements are arranged differently, but the matter is essentially the same. And another way of looking at it is, in the universe there are two things. There is we could say matter and space. So time and space. So in space we have matter. All the things that appear in matter, they're just the same elements come together. And in terms of time, we understand that time is cyclic. In the modern Western world, we have a linear conception of time. But you see, everywhere in nature, time is cyclic. Now, if you consider the seconds, they go round, 1 to 60. The day, hours go round. The weeks, the months, the year, it goes around. And the cosmos also goes around. So the earth, in its trajectory around the moon, doesn't go to any new place. It goes around. So time, if you look at it naturally, is cyclic. And when time is cyclic, what does it mean? That there is nothing really new that happens in the world. It's just same old things keep happening again and again and again. They appear new, but essentially they are the same. Srila Prabhupada tells the story of how there was a man who had a very chaste and beautiful wife. But then he was attracted to a prostitute. And now this prostitute, she was there for her, she had to earn a living that way. But when his wife went and met him, this is ruining my life, please help me. She saw this wife as a very earnest lady. And she decided to teach the man a lesson. So when he came to meet her, he said that he served him one food in a golden plate and one in a just ordinary material, the same food. And then he asked her, when he saw that, he said, why the two plates? He says, the food is the same. Then, when he says the food is the same, he said, that's what I want to tell you. She told him that you are attracted to the body, but the essential pleasure is the same. Don't get so captivated by it. So the point is, what Prabhupada told by the story is that the externals look attractive and we get captivated by the externals. But ahara nidra bhayamaithunam cha. The essential pleasures in the world, there's nothing new in those pleasures. Ultimately, when we eat food, the food tastes delicious and different foods taste differently delicious. But actually, is the taste of the food in the food, or is it in our secretion of saliva? There's another disease in which a person's tongue stops secreting saliva. Then even if they put the most delicious jalebi or gulab jamun or cake, they can't taste anything. So it is basically the contact of the senses and the sense objects. We say that's what brings pleasure. But more than that, it is just the same experience stimulated differently. So there is no essential difference in the pleasures in the world. But we just get captivated. It all, Namasuya Vadartha. This is new name. So this is the first point, that the newness in the world is largely created by the names. It's mostly due to word jugglery. We just give this a new name, give this a new name, give this a new name. So it's in the world often there is rebranding that is done. And rebranding can deceive people in a terrible way. So one of the most graphic examples of rebranding was in the 1920s when the cigarette companies were selling cigarettes. The history of tobacco industry is a history of constant deception. By 1925, 1926, they found that all the young men who had enough money to smoke, they're already smoking in the Western world. I thought, now how do we expand our market? So they came up with an idea that women don't smoke. So how do we get women to smoke? So in America, there was in the Independence, American Day of Independence, there's a march through the various streets, especially in the Broadway in America, New York, there was a march. So they got most of the most famous American female icons, Hollywood stars and others, walking on the streets, and at the most visible point where the photos and the cameras could be taken, that all these women take out special thin, long cigarettes, and they all lit it and smoked. And when they smoked, people are, what are you doing? And all of them were paid to give the same answer. Said, we are lighting the torches of freedom. The torches of freedom. Now that was the time when the suffragette movement was gaining momentum, and women were having the feeling that we were suppressed by men for so long. Now we are going to be free. Now that word freedom had so much appeal that, a cigarette is a torch of freedom. Now how does cigarette give you freedom? What has it got to do with that? But the branding was so attractive that people got captivated. People got captivated. So this is of course a tragic example, and it was decades later that the harmful effects of smoking started coming out. In fact, in 1950s, there were scientists, as more and more evidence started coming out that smoking causes health issues, lung problems and other things. So there was a scientist who wrote a paper, and what happens is much scientific research is funded by the same industries about whom the scientists are writing the papers. So this was funded, and what does the scientist propose? Now there's a clear correlation. People who smoke get lung diseases. So he wrote a paper saying that there is a special gene which causes lung disease and which also makes people crave for cigarettes. That means instead of saying cigarettes cause smoking, he postulates something else. So there is a clear A and B are together. But instead of saying A causes B, he proposed something which is C. There's a gene. The gene causes people to get lung diseases, and it also causes people to crave for cigarettes. Cigarettes don't cause lung diseases. Now this is a hypothesis. It is basically crazy, but it is unprovable. Because you might always say you have not studied the body enough to find that gene. And in that way they try to get people off the hook. So now genes also, now there are all kinds of people give names for genes, and there is no empirical basis in genetic science for that idea. The genes are basically determine some structural features of the body. Whether genes determine specific behaviors is open to question. But the point is, just have word jugglery and deceive people. So there is in the world something which is portrayed in a new way, it can completely captivate people. So therefore what it says is, the wise people see that this world is simply a jugglery of names. So let's recite this line once again. Ataha kavir nama suyavadarthaha. Yavadarthaha. Second line now. Syada pramatto vyavasaya buddhi. So pramatta means deluded, mad. So that's the second line which we'll discuss. So what is illusion? Deceives. How does it deceive? By displaying the initial nectar. Now when we see something new, say a new phone comes up, a new car comes up, and now when we buy a new set of clothes, we do feel good about it. We don't just feel that, hey, this is just a jugglery of names. There's something new about it. So yes, there is newness. There's no denying that. And this is the nature of worldly happiness. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that which tastes like nectar in the beginning will taste like poison in the end. Vishayendriya sanyoga yattadagre amritopamam pariname vishamiva Tat sukham raj samsmritam. So, what illusion does is, it just shows us the initial nectar. And the nectar appears new. So, I get a new phone. Suppose we buy a new set of clothes. We feel good, I got new clothes. But then what happens? How long does that newness last? It just lasts for some time and it's gone. And then once it loses its novelty, it also loses the pleasure. So is there newness? Yes. I said earlier that, is there happiness in the world? There is happiness, but it is very, very tiny. So the illusion is not about the presence of happiness. Or the misconception. The misconception is about the quantity of happiness. So Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers to Narasimhadev says, Kutra shishashruti sukham ragatrishni rupa kvedam kalevaram ashesha rujam viroha. Kvedam, he says, Kutra shishashruti sukha mrigatrishni rupa. My dear Lord, the pleasure in this world is just like a mirage. We hear about it, we see it, and we get captivated by it. But what happens? What is this poison that comes eventually? He says, Kvedam kalevaram ashesha rujam viroha. That this body is a breeding ground of unlimited diseases. And the body is the basis for all sensations that we experience of pleasure. But when the body gets deteriorated and destroyed, then where is the pleasure? So the pleasure, as the body ages, the pleasure starts disappearing and the pain starts increasing. So both in the long run, in youth we might have some pleasure, nectar, but as we grow older, the poison starts becoming more and more. And even in youth, Kvedam kalevaram ashesha rujam viroha. And therefore, he says that mrigatrishni rupa, it's like a mirage. So now it's interesting he uses the word mirage, but then in the last line he also uses another word. He says, Madhulavai shamayandurapai. There is pleasure, but it is honey, nectar, but lava is very small. So what is the mirage? First, in mirage there is no water, but he says there is madhulavai. There is some honey over there, some nectar over there. So the illusion, the mirage is that the small drop of nectar appears to be like a big pond, a big lake, a big ocean to us. So the illusion is not about the presence of pleasure. The illusion is about the magnitude of the pleasure. So is there newness in the world? Yeah. When we interact with the appearance and the appearance is new, that looks great, that feels great. And we do feel some pleasure because of the newness. But the newness doesn't last for long because it is only superficial. So all sensual pleasures, the Bhagavad Gita says, are samsparshaja bhoga. Their contact with the senses with the sense objects. Vishaya indriya samyogad. Now one way to understand the superficiality of these pleasures is, so basically the contact of the senses with the sense objects produces pleasure. So one example is, say, tickling. Suppose if there is some relatives come to your home and they have a small child. Just to have fun, you might tickle the belly of the child. Now when we tickle the belly of the child, what happens? The child starts laughing. Now when the child starts laughing, is that child happy? Well, yes, we could say that's some kind of happiness. But if the guests were there with us for 2 hours, and for 2 hours we're tickling the belly of the child. Hey, stop, we would say. Now if tickling itself were happiness, then the science is advanced enough today that it can make for all of us a perpetual tickling machine. And we could keep tickling ourselves for the rest of our life and we would be happy. Would we? We'd be disgusted, stop it. Isn't it? So, just as tickling gives pleasure, but it's a very superficial pleasure. So all the newness of the world, it tickles our senses, it tickles our mind. But afterward it becomes boring. And actually boring is the best it can become. It can actually become agonizing. So we get attached to something and afterward it stops giving us pleasure, it becomes boring. But we become attached to something and then it's ripped away from us. And that can be devastating. So there's initial nectar, but after that there is eventual poison. So what is the nature of illusion? Atah kavibhir nama suyad syad apramatto vyavasaya buddhi. Be apramatta. Be not deluded. The delusion is that to just get carried away by the nectar. And especially in today's world, the media, the advertising industry just shows us the nectar everywhere. This is so enjoyable, that is so enjoyable, that is so enjoyable. And because of that, we get captivated. And we get captivated, we get deluded. So let's recite the second line. Syata pramatto vyavasaya buddhi. Apramatto vyavasaya buddhi. Siddhe anyatharthe nayateta tatra. Nayateta tatra. So let's look at the third point here. Siddhe anyatharthe nayateta tatra. So buddhi, cultivate the intelligence. For what? Siddhi, for perfection, for spiritual realization. Cultivate intelligence to see the substance. Now, if we just see with our eyes, with our unaided, untrained eyes, we see only a small portion of reality. Actually speaking, we don't see with our eyes. We see with our intelligence that makes sense of what our eyes see. Imagine if there's some tribal who's no idea of the complexity of modern economics. That person comes to a stock exchange. And there are people are sitting and there's a large screen. On that screen, the stock exchange rates are there. So now because of this coronavirus fear, the Dow and other things are just crashing down. They're going down. So imagine the stock exchange is being displayed over there. There's a graph. And in the graph, the line just crashes down. And there are hundreds of people watching. Oh no, just catch their head. Now this tribal says, why are you so worked up? There's just one line went down on the screen. Now you will say one line went down on the screen. What's there to be worked up about? So he's seeing with the eyes, but when he doesn't have the intelligence, he doesn't understand what that means. So actually, we don't see with our eyes alone. In fact, what education does is, it gives us the intelligence by which we can, when we see, we make sense of what we see. The Bhagavad Gita talks about this as Jnana Chakshuhu. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimudha nanu pashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. In 15:10 it says that we actually can't see the soul with just our eyes. We see it with the eyes of knowledge. So just as when we see the stock exchange, the graph, to make sense of it, we need eyes of knowledge. Now somebody might have say completely white nails. Now we might say, okay, your nails are white. But a doctor might say, hey, do you have anemia? So they're seeing the same thing, but because they have knowledge, they see differently. Or they see not differently, they see much more than what we see. So similarly, when we get spiritual knowledge, then we get the intelligence to see the substance beyond the appearance. And in fact, this capacity to see the substance beyond the appearance is what differentiates humans from animals. In a desert, an animal might just chase after mirages. Just keep chasing water, keep chasing water, keep chasing water. But we humans, we may also see the water, but with that, if we have the intelligence, hey, that's not really water, that's a mirage, and then we won't chase there. Then we will go where actually in the direction, say, if our compass is telling where water is, oasis is, that's where we'll go. So, important responsibility in human life is to cultivate the intelligence by which we can see reality, by which we can see the substance underlying the appearance. And what is the substance? Siddhe anyatharthe nayate tatra. Siddhe means perfection, spiritual realization. The beyond the body is the soul. So bodily sensations can give us very superficial pleasure, but it is the spiritual connection of the soul with the whole. That is what is going to give us real happiness. So we need to look at the substance. So let's recite the third line. Siddhe anyatharthe nayate tatra. Te tatra parishramam tatra samikshamanaha. So this brings us to the last point. So we're discussing the acronym NICE. So newness, illusion, cultivate. And last is endeavor. Endeavor for the enduring, not just the enjoyable. That there are many things which appear enjoyable, but they will just be like the initial nectar, and once they are over, we'll be left with nothing. So we need to endeavor. So, we have to endeavor, but endeavor for what? We need to see that which seems enjoyable, that will soon become miserable, and I will be left with nothing. When we die, we'll carry nothing except our consciousness with us. So that which endures, that is what we need to endeavor for. So now, bhakti, what is it? In bhakti when we practice, the endeavor devotion is not so much about giving up desires. It is about taking up higher desires, taking up spiritual desires. If we think of devotion means, oh, I should not do this, I should not do this, I should not do that, then we'll feel deprived. But if we consider Srila Prabhupada had many illustrious god brothers, and some of them were lifelong sannyasis. Some of them had studied scripture, learned Sanskrit much deeper than what he had in some ways. However, now Prabhupada, what differentiated Prabhupada from his other god brothers was that he took up the desire to share Krishna consciousness all over the world, more than anyone else. So it was his driving desire that kept him awake at night, that made him endeavor. He worked extremely hard because he had that desire. So bhakti is not so much about, oh, I should not do this, I should not do that. It is about taking up divine desires. We don't give up material desires, but we take up spiritual desires. So when we say this world is full of jugglery of names, what does it mean? The world will still appear attractive to us. And if we keep saying, oh, no, I will not do this, I will not do this, I will not do this, we will soon feel drained by that. But instead, we need to find out what it is that we would like to do for Krishna. So endeavor, taking up desires means that if we consider, so this is a circle of things we like to do, and this is a circle of things related with bhakti, we find out where the two intersect. So there is something which is uplifting and also something which is relishable. If we can find that, if we like to read, and there are spiritual books, and you find out that author or that book which has a subject which you can connect with, and then you can commit to that. If you like music, and in bhakti also there is music. So we may be attracted to any kind of music, but we strive to become attracted to focus on the intersection between the spiritual music. And then we endeavor in that direction. And when we find out some endeavor that we can do, some service that we can do, which is both what we like to do and what is good for us. In fact, that is the essence of Varnashram. Varnashram is not about dividing society into classes. That is simply a socio-cultural arrangement, but the principle underlying it is that let engage people in a way that harmonizes with their material nature and their spiritual purpose. Their material nature means what they naturally like to do, and spiritual purpose is what is naturally good for us. So if we can find something like that and take that up in our life, then we will connect with Krishna deeper and deeper. So in the material world, the things appear new, but actually they are not new. But in bhakti, things appear the same, but they can be experienced as new. And it's the same mantra we chant, the same Lord we worship. But actually, if we connect with Him more and more, He is infinite. And as our connection with Him deepens, newer and newer aspects of His glory start being revealed. And as those glories start being revealed, we start relishing Him more and more. Rishyami cha mohar moho, rishyami cha punha punha. The Bhagavad Gita says, at the end, Sanjay says that, as I am remembering Krishna's message, and remembering Krishna's words, I am experiencing thrill at every moment. So, the newness in life can be experienced by going deeper into our connection with Krishna, deeper into our service to Krishna. So, when we take up some service which inspires us, which then will move forward in bhakti, and then this last point I'll conclude, that actually Krishna wants to use each one of us to serve him. And the world is a dark place. The light of God is present within us. And that light of God can not only shine in our inner world, but it can shine through us to the outer world. So tesham evanukampartham ahamagyanajam tamaha nashayamyatma bhavastho jnanadipena bhasvatah. Krishna says, I can light the torch. I want to bestow mercy on you. I want to light the torch of knowledge in your heart. The torch of wisdom, that which will illumine you, and through you it can illumine many others. So, how much light we can share in the world, that we have no idea. That if we become devoted to God, if we become channels for His compassion, we let the light of God shine through us, then what we can do can exceed our greatest expectations. We all try to become special by gaining something new in the world. If I get a new haircut, if I get a new dress, if I get a new car, people will appreciate me. But that's all superficial. However, if we connect with Krishna deeply and let Krishna illumine us and the world through us, not only will we experience newness internally through our connection with Krishna, but we can also experience newness externally in terms of the contribution we make on behalf of Krishna. Krishna can use us to do extraordinary things. And that is where we all need to endeavor. All other endeavors that don't connect us with Krishna, they are all parishramam tatra samikshamaanaha. With the eyes of knowledge, we see that they are just hard work which will ultimately be a waste of time. Every moment we use for serving Krishna, however, that is the ultimately beneficial use of time for ourselves as well as for others. So I'll summarize. I spoke today on this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The theme was, what's really nice. When we look at the world, hey, that's nice. That's not so nice. That's nice. We get captivated by things that look nice. So to understand what is nice, I discussed the verse in terms of an acronym. So we discussed the first line is Ataha Kavir Namasu Yavadarthaha. So the newness that is there, newness is largely due to word jugglery. I talked about the torches of freedom. Cigarettes were branded torches of freedom, people got captivated. So the world is just the same elements. So they're just combined differently. And time is cyclic. So news is mostly old things happening to new people. That's why now we may say, does that mean there is absolutely nothing new in the world? Yes, there is new, but it's superficial. So I talked about how in the world, worldly pleasures, there's initial nectar, but eventually there's poison. So the illusion is what? Sada pramatto vyavasaya buddhi. We need to go beyond the illusions of the world. But the illusion deceives us by displaying the initial nectar. And we see this nectar, that nectar, that nectar, that nectar. We take this nectar, we get bored and we go to that nectar. But while going to that nectar, after this nectar, the poison starts coming for us. The poison is the things which appear new and titillating soon become boring. And that's the least bad consequence. A much worse consequence could be that they can become devastating for us when we are attached and we lose them. So when we understand that the newness in this world is actually a deception, it's just the appearance, then we seek the intelligence, cultivate the intelligence, that is the siddhe anyatharthe nayate tatra. We cultivate the intelligence to see the substance, see the reality. So we don't see just with our eyes, we see with the intelligence that helps us make sense of what our eyes see. And it's like a stock market crash. A tribal can't understand it. Discolored nails, a medically uneducated person can't understand the significance. Similarly, when we get philosophical education, then we see that underlying the world, the real value is spiritual, is ultimately Krishna. And then last I talked about was we all have to endeavor. We can't just keep saying no. So endeavor for the enduring, not just the enjoyable. So we look at bhakti is not so much about giving up desires, it is about taking up spiritual desires. And in that I talked about how do we take up a desire. We look at the two circles, things that we like to do and things that are uplifting for us. Find out their intersection and become committed to doing that. And once we start doing that, Now, we will, in the world, things appear new, but they turn out to be the same. Krishna appears to be the same, but he turns out to be new. As our connection with him deepens, we experience newer and newer joy in that connection. And not only can we experience newness in our inner connection, but when we try to serve Krishna, then the light of God can shine through us to illumine the world. And what we can do can exceed our expectations. And thus, we can experience newness in what we do in the outer world also. Thus, the path to newness is not by chasing new things, but by cultivating our relationship with our Lord. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, any questions or comments? Yes. Okay. So, we may see with the eyes of knowledge and understand that deities are Krishna, but still it's theoretical for us. So, how do we go from the theoretical knowledge to the actual realization that this is Krishna? That requires expansion of our consciousness. So, basically, I had given a class, which was last Sunday. No, it was a scriptural study class we did. Not Saturday. Anyway, no, scripture study seminar we did in the evenings. So we talked about this. There are 3 stages. See, first is the conviction of the intelligence, by which we start practicing. And once we start practicing, what happens is there is a purification of the mind. And when there is purification of the mind, then there is perception of spiritual reality. So right now, with our conviction, we are focusing on Krishna. But our mind is still impure. And so what happens when the mind is impure? That maybe I think I have this image here itself. Let me see. There it is. Study makes us steady and sturdy. Okay. That's strange. Anyway. So, what happens essentially is that when we practice bhakti, we start, we get the knowledge. By the knowledge, we start practicing, right? And we start practicing by which, right now, our consciousness is too caught in material things. See, now, what happens is, we think of material things as special, as material things as sublime, as something very extraordinary. So as long as our mind is so captivated by worldly forms, as long as is not exactly spiritual, but as long as we see the material as special, we can't see the spiritual as special. Because what happens is the consciousness is captivated. Yatanto yoginaschainam pasyanti atmanyavasthitam yatanto apyakrita atmano nainam pasyanti chetasa. In 15:11, and Bhagavad Krishna says that once we become situated on the spiritual platform by practice, then we start perceiving the spiritual as relishable. But otherwise, as long as we are on the sensual platform, even if we try, we can't relish the spiritual. Yatanto yoginaschainam pasyanti atmanyavasthitam. When we go situated in the soul level, we start perceiving. So it's a gradual process of purification. Even if we don't experience the deities as spiritual, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says three things, three levels of perception. He says Marma Chakshu, Jnana Chakshu and Prema Chakshu. Marma Chakshu is the eyes of flesh. With the ordinary eyes of flesh, we will just see the deities as a statue. But with the Jnana Chakshu, with the eyes of knowledge, we will see the deities as a representation of Krishna. But with the Prema Chakshu, with the eyes of knowledge, we will see the deities not as a representation of Krishna, but as a manifestation of Krishna. So representation is like a photo. Now, some person is not there, but we have a photo. It looks like them and it reminds us of them. So although we, in some ways, we intellectually accept that this is Krishna, but practically we are seeing it at best as a manifestation of Krishna. But it's not a representation of Krishna we are seeing it as right now. Yeah, some way Krishna, but it's not just a representation. So the journey to see Krishna, to the deity is not just a representation, but as manifestation that requires purification. So the more we start getting purified, the more we stop seeing the things disconnected from Krishna as attractive, then the more our consciousness becomes available to perceive Krishna. And then we start perceiving Krishna's presence more and more. Everywhere, and especially where he is manifested directly. For example, as the deities. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if time is cyclic, then how do we connect with Krishna thinking that he is eternal? Well, time is cyclic, but we are not a part of the cyclic time. There is samsara chakra is envisioned like a Ferris wheel. It just keeps going round and round. So in that sense, sometimes happiness, sometimes distress. That goes on up and down. But beyond it all, we are spiritual beings. And as spiritual beings, we belong to a non-material arena of reality. So the cyclicity of time is itself not the problem. The problem is, along with the cyclicity, there is an illusion of newness. So we want to focus on cyclicity to understand that the same thing, Kali Yuga is very bad right now, but it's cycle. Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga, it will keep happening. The cyclicity of time means that people have this idea that the future will be dramatically better than the present. Yes, the future can be better, but it will be better if our consciousness becomes better, not by our circumstances becoming better. The whole of premise of material progress is that we can make our conditions better. And by that, we can make our political conditions better, we can make our economic conditions better, we can make our environmental conditions better. And of course, we need to try to do that. At least we shouldn't make them worse as much as possible. But those things alone will not make us happy. So we all as conscious beings want, we can't, to be conscious means to be desirous, to have desires. And the desire is that we can make the future better than the present is. That's what inspires us to wake up every day and do something in life. But how will the future become better than the present? It is not by endeavoring at the material level. Yes, if we don't endeavor at the material level, or if we are careless or irresponsible at the material level, we can make the future worse than what it is at present. But just endeavoring at the material level won't make the future substantially better. For that we need to improve our consciousness. So Krishna exists transcendental to the world. When our consciousness becomes transcendental, then even this world cycle goes round and round, our consciousness rises above that cycle. And that's how we experience happiness beyond the cyclicity of time, where there is sometimes happiness, sometimes distress. Okay? Thank you. Any last question? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, you were also talking about how Maya presents something as nectar at the beginning and then becomes poison later, so it always looks very attractive at the beginning. Can you just explain why does that system exist at all? Why is there a system by which things are so attractive that we're almost drawn to it, sometimes even against our will?
Okay, yes, good question. So why are things so attractive that they are irresistibly drawn toward them? Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. It is said that the absolute truth is complete, and this world is also complete. Now it is complete in what sense? It is complete for its purpose. Everything's completeness has to be seen in the context of its purpose. Now we say actually this nature of the world where things appear attractive, that actually deceives us. So how does it serve any purpose? It actually takes us away from Krishna. Well, yes, but what is the purpose of the world? The purpose of the world is twofold. It is experimentation and redirection. The soul has free will, and free will has no meaning unless there is an arena where free will can be exercised however one wants. So therefore the material world exists for the soul to have the opportunity to exercise free will in a way that it desires. So that's why there are so many objects that promise enjoyment in the world. And that's, we can experiment. Maybe this will make me happy. Maybe that will make me happy. Maybe that will make me happy. That's experimentation that we do. So now while doing this experimentation, slowly but surely we start realizing that these things that promise pleasure, they don't deliver that much pleasure. And then with guidance, with the guidance of Super Soul from within, the representative of Super Soul from without, we start redirecting ourselves. So now if this world, let's visualize various options. Now if this world had been a place of constant misery, with no appearance of pleasure also, with nothing that looks attractive enough to draw us toward it, what would have happened? We would have just got used to the misery. Now see, if we are in a community and there is somebody who doesn't have eyes, then we all notice, oh, this person doesn't have eyes, and they also notice, and then we feel that, okay, this person is missing eyes. But imagine if there were a kingdom where everybody was blind. Nobody even would know what is blindness, and nobody would even notice blindness. So even if there is some crippling deficiency, if it is not felt, then we get used to living with that deficiency. So if the world were a place of constant misery, we would have got used to it. And we wouldn't have even endeavored for anything spiritual, anything higher. Okay, this is the way existence is, this is the way it is. Just live with it, what can you do about it? But the promise of pleasure, that makes us look, oh, this is not the way things are meant to be. I'm meant to be happy. So the promise of pleasure is what drives us. So if there were no pleasure at all in this world, we would just get deadened and used to misery. So now the pleasure in this world is meant to remind us that there is higher pleasure. But where is it to be found? So if we consider, say, this is the desert, this is the oasis or the ocean. Now, and there are small drops of water that are just sprinkled everywhere. So if I am in the oasis over here, there are some drops of water which are over here. If I chase those drops, I'll go further and further away from the ocean. Now there might be some drops over here. If I just go after them, I'll stay at the same distance from the ocean. There are some drops which are on the way to the ocean. So if I chase those drops, then I'll gradually move toward the ocean. So similarly in this world, there are various pleasures. Some pleasures are directly anti-devotional. If you pursue those pleasures, say, I talked earlier about music. If somebody likes music, but there is completely sensual music with double entendres and sexual, not just undertones, there's completely sexual only. Then if we get captivated by that, then that's like the drop. There's also little pleasure, only a drop. But that drop is something which is taking us away from the oasis. But if there were no drops at all in the desert, the person would think maybe there's no water anywhere, I don't know where the water is. The person would just sink into hopelessness and die over there. So the drops make the person move. So the problem is not the presence of the drops. The problem is the lack of intelligence to understand which drop should be pursued and which drop should not be pursued. So the drops which take us away from the ocean shouldn't be pursued. The drops which take us toward the ocean. That means even when we practice bhakti, we experience certain pleasure. Now it might not be pure spiritual pleasure. Some people many more people like kirtans than classes. Now, is it that they are experiencing Krishna more in the kirtans, or they're just liking the music? Well, whatever it is, they're moving closer toward Krishna. Isn't it? Some people might like classes a lot, but they might just like the intellectual analysis. They may not like the Krishna aspect so much. But whatever it is, they are experiencing that in the context of Krishna, and they're moving toward Krishna. So we need to look at those drops which are taking us toward the ocean. So those drops are present because they remind us of the ocean. So the drops remind us of the ocean, but the drops don't always take us to the ocean. So we need to have the intelligence to know which drops will take us to the ocean. Another way to put it is that everything attractive comes from Krishna, but everything attractive doesn't take us to Krishna. So we need to understand which attractive manifestations will take us toward Krishna, and we focus on those. There are so many attractive forms in the world. If we get captivated by those, we'll be deluded. But if we look at the attractive form of Krishna, if we look at attractive things connected with Krishna, we'll move toward Krishna. So the system of drops being scattered all around us in the desert, that is at one level for experimentation. Okay, try this drop, try this drop, try this drop. And ultimately it's for redirection. Okay, look for those drops which are going to take you to the ocean. Okay. So thank you very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.